special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and Doc Tales with our host, Royal Doc Alan Lindemann. Doc, what's going on, man? How are you?
We're doing really well here, Neil. And you?
Fantastic. And you're excited about our guest, aren't you, Doc?
Yes, really. I'm happy to meet you, Dr. Klein.
Yes. So Dr. Tovah Klein joins us. You have a new book out. We're going to kind of first dive into a little bit of your background, then we'll get into the book.
Sounds good.
So let's learn about you. Go ahead.
So I'm a professor at Barnard College. I've been there for nearly 30 years, running a wonderful center called the Center for Toddler Development. And we do research on parents and parental influences on children. Our college students work at that center through a psychology course. And I've spent my life really devoted to understanding parents' impact on children and then also responses to stressful and traumatic situations in life, which we all face at some point.
Okay, good.
My first question is, how did you get into this? It's a great field. I love it. But what got you started?
Yeah. Two things got me started. One was I was always attracted to children and had this sense, even probably as a child myself, that the adults really didn't understand children. And that, but also the joy of children has been something that's always appealed to me. But early on, and I write about this in the book, I started working with children who had been abused, and I was really taken with the power of the parent because when a child who's abused is getting in trouble, say at school, a teacher's putting a limit on them, they call out for the mother, right? Mommy, as if the parent's going to come protect them. And I would think to myself, wait, that parent's not going to protect you. So that got me really thinking about the parent child relationship in a big way. And I've really never veered from that course of trying to unpack and understand what is it that we, the parents, bring with us to being a parent, sometimes inadvertently hoist on our children, but also what's the incredible protective factor in this parent-child relationship, and then how does that happen over time?
And it's a process, right? Parenting has become so difficult because every parents want to model after what their parents did. And they really don't understand specifically each child is an individual, it's different and has different likes and dislikes. And you really have to learn the process of parenting. I look at it like this: if teachers would go home with their kids and teach like they taught in the classroom as a parent and had rules, regulations, but also kind of allowing certain rule, kind of really developing system of consequences, rewards, and all these different things put together, and it's structured and individualized, that would be the best way to parent. But the problem is that it's 24/7. If you're yeah, you can't deviate from it, right?
Yeah. I think it's 25/7. It feels like it's more than that. It's wonderful to be a parent, and it's gonna be a constant challenge. And you touched on, I think, the most important thing that I'm writing about in this book is it's about individuals and that each child is different. And if you anybody listening who has more than one knows this for sure, but if you have one, you also know that child is a unique human being and the parent is an individual. And you put those two together in what we call relationship, and it can get quite complex. And there's not one way to do it, but there is a need for love, for security, for kindness, even when things are going wrong. And as you said, for some basic outline of rules, structure. We eat at a dinner table. I'm not going to tell you what to eat or how to eat, but we sit and eat. We don't drag food around the house. That's a basic rule. And it doesn't have to be really like complicated, but children look for that. They look for the parents to say, I've got this and I'm going to help you through it.
Years ago, things were different. And I'm 76 years old, and I can remember back in the 50s. And the way things were then, I grew up on a farm, and your parents taught you things. They taught you how to take care of the animals so they didn't die, how to take care of the chickens. So your life really was thinking about things other than yourself.
Mm.
My children, when they're raising their children, They're like little kings and queens, you know. I'm thinking, what are you teaching these kids anyway? You're not giving them anything.
I think you need both, right? We need room to say, here's where I think we've evolved maybe as a society to say, we have to respect children as individuals. They have minds, they have ideas. When I do work with toddlers, which I get to do all the time at the Center for Toddler Development that I run, you see their wheels starting to turn and they're like, aha, I have an idea. Now, if that idea is to throw something across the room to test gravity, then one of the teachers in the room will go up to them and give them a bucket and say, "Oh, you want to throw that? Here." And I use that as a model for 2-year olds, 12-year olds, 20-year olds. It's not that they can't throw something, but they can't just throw it all over the place. The same thing is true at home, right? I'm going to listen to you, I'm going to respect you, but we still may not do what you're asking to do. And that's the balance, I think, of
Right.
parent has some control, some rules and regulations respectfully, and children feel safer when the
Yeah,
parents do
yeah.
that.
And they don't feel safe when there's no rules and regulations or minimal rules and regulations. You might think they really like it, but they're really in pain because they don't feel like there is anything safe going on. That's why school is a safety zone for lots of kids.
Mhm. And that idea of safety, so much of my book is premised on this, is that you have to have that safe base, that safe place. It's the person, and it's usually a parent, but it can be another caregiver, it could be a grandparent who raises you, is the person who's giving you this message, not just in words, but in action and in, feeling and like tone of this is tough. I'm going to help you with it. We're going to be okay. Like, I get that you want something to happen that's not going to happen. And I'm okay that you're mad at me, but children feel safer when they feel like the whole world is not open to them. A smaller portion of it is. And at the same time, we have to respect, okay, they're going to have ideas and desires different than ours. And we also have to give room for that.
Okay.
Well, I have to say, as a parent, that was one of the most fun parts of my life is my kids when they're little. You have to kind of try to understand them. For example, there's a time when children sitting in a high chair want to throw their food on the floor. Well, they're just performing an experiment in gravity. They're just watching it fall. They're not trying to get you aggravated. It's just an experiment for them.
Yeah, I say the same thing. Gravity is fascinating to young children. And it's also fascinating when the parent goes over and picks it up and puts it back on their tray. It's like, huh,
Yep.
are you going to do that again? And at some point, the parent says, you know what? You're done with dinner.
Yeah.
I see you're throwing, we're done. And that's the
Right.
limit, right? It's like,
Yep.
then the child may protest and then they feel like, okay, I get it. Like, I actually don't throw food everywhere, but I can try it a little. And that's that balance that we then take through all of our child's years that gets hard sometimes and funny sometimes.
Yeah.
Both.
And what do you think that how parents when you tell them it's 24/7, what in your book will tell them, guess what, you have to do this, or it could be very detrimental to your children if you don't take this seriously as being a parent.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that what comes through in my book, and I think comes through, is compassion for parents because there are going to be challenges that you could never have predicted, and there's also going to be joys that you never knew existed. There's both. And so when you see your role as I have to be the safety for my child, a big part of my book is what I call the you factor. What do you bring to this? How can you take care of you? This idea of stepping back, exhaling at times, not always having the answer, not always getting it right is really important because I don't want parents to go out there and feel they have the weight of the world on them. What I want them to know is you're going to get it wrong, no question, but you can kindly go back and say to your child, I really messed up and I'm sorry. And parents will say, well, doesn't that take away my authority? Not at all. It says to the child, I can trust you. And when
Mhm.
things go wrong, I still know you're there for me is more important that more important than almost anything a parent can do. What should they avoid? Like the big, like in lights avoid, it's shaming children. When we scream at them or tell them how bad and rotten they are, rather than, of course, he's dropping the food. That's fascinating to a 2 year old.
Right. That's
We hurt them.
an experiment. It's
And
not
it's,
being naughty.
yeah, yeah. And to say, I'm going to put a limit here.
Yeah.
You want to go out till midnight, you're only 12 years old. That's not happening. And you can be mad, but I'm not going to call you all kinds of names.
Yeah, like and when you fail a test or certain things, you're a loser, you'll never amount to anything.
Yeah.
Because the parents don't have the crystal ball. And we don't know based on as a child, what you perform does not mean what you're going to perform as an adult. Because we all grow at different times and different things, and we figure things out. You
Figure things
cannot, you cannot have a crystal ball and say, as a parent, and say, I know you're going to end up like this. That's not true.
And every child has the potential, honestly, to succeed, however you want to
Yes.
define that.
It doesn't matter if they have exceptional challenges or anything. You just don't know.
But
What
you
can
have to give them a base to go from, which is love and some structure and some leeway to mess up, because they all do. In our eyes, mess up. I'm not sure that they feel like they are. And you want them to know that when I go and tell you, or you've seen that I failed that test, that you already told me, don't you want to prepare more for it? You're not going to say, I told you so, but you're going to say, that doesn't feel good. And next time, if you want help, I'm here.
and then just, how can I help you through this? What can I do for you? We can sit down, and the sacrifices of parents are so important. Go ahead, Doc, with your next question.
Hmm. Well, I've spent some time thinking and reading about Dr. John Bowlby. You probably read. He's an English psychiatrist. He's actually got three very large volumes, and he spends a lot of time talking about the surviving children of when parents pass or they leave. And he spent a lot of time on, for example, if the father goes, how does it going to affect the male children more than the female children? So he spent some time on that. But I'm sure you've read that, and I'm sure that, but we haven't talked about what happens when a parent is missing. So that's my next question for you. What do you do with that? What do you
Yeah.
say or think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question. I think on the one hand, children don't necessarily need both parents. They don't necessarily need a parent. They need a loving, consistent caregiver, right, of some kind. They also need a story, a genuine, honest story at their age level about that missing parent. Because children internalize, if a parent is not there,
Hmm.
what did I do wrong?
Yep.
Why didn't this parent love me? Even if you know this parent was not capable of being your parent or being anybody's parent or whatever it is, the child internalizes, I'm bad. And
Yes.
so
My
that's the
fault.
shame piece. My
Yep.
fault. What did I do wrong? I should have been better. Even if the parent left when that was a baby, right? It's like, well, if I had been different, if I had been lovable, and you don't want that to sink in. So children need genuine stories of where that parent is, if the parent died, if the parent is incapable of being in the picture. And that's hard for the parent who's raising them, because they don't often want to tell a negative story. But I think it can be done in careful ways that says, this man who's your father had a lot of problems of his own. Nobody's fault, not your fault. And we don't know where he is right now, but not your fault.
Okay.
Yep.
And but
Human.
it's a story that has to be updated over time. That's one thing for a 4-year-old. It's more questions for a 6-year-old. I think similar happens with children who are adopted into loving families at birth. At some point, go, wait a minute, who was the person who birthed me and what's the story? And so we have to be honest at a child's level to really give them that sense of who they are and where they come from, and
Absolutely.
not hide it, because that gets really scary to children.
Yep.
Why aren't people talking about this? I must be bad. The fault always goes to the child.
So, Dr. Klein, where's the best place people can find information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you?
Yeah. So tovahklein.com, Tovah, Klein.com. I'm also on, Instagram, Facebook, howtoddlersthrive.com on Facebook. Um, and then anywhere books are sold, online, in stores, you name it, they can find Raising Resilience.
All right. We appreciate it, Dr. Tova. Thanks again.
Yes,
Thank
thank you,
you.
All
Doctor.
right. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and Doc Tales, guys. Take care.